right, I guess we'll do an official opening here and say welcome everybody. We'll call the meeting. Is Helen here? Helen, did I see you? No. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Helen.
Hello.
So you're going to be taking our minutes.
Okie doke.
I wish we could go through and have everybody say hello, but with so many people, that would take quite a lot of time. So I'll just say it is so great to see everybody's faces and nice and welcome to this meeting. I did in the chat post some documents. The first thing I posted, if you're opening your chat, you will see the minutes from the last time we got together, which surprisingly was in July of 2019 in Portland. So I did post those minutes, and at some point here at the beginning, we will be asking to approve those minutes. But I just wanted to make that so you know that it's there so you can take a look at it. And then probably at the end of my time, I will ask for a vote on approval of the minutes. I did try to create some kind of a poll. So that was my little test for the large Zoom meeting. So maybe we'll try it with a poll, but we might just do it with consensus and everybody raising their hands. But that's what we got going on for now. So welcome everybody. We'll officially call this to order. I will introduce myself. My name is Rob Chapman. I am currently the president or chair of the ACM Northeast Board of Directors. I have been so since Erica resigned last year at the beginning of the year. Erica is doing great. She's now in New York. She has a great job at a nonprofit in New York. We all miss her dearly, and it was sad to see her go and move on, but that happens. And I was able to step in and become the president. Little did I know the year that I would have as we began quickly to fall into a pandemic. So it was a tough year. We had some of the first things we had to do was to sort of like really decide whether we were going to have a conference. And a year ago, we were trying to decide whether we couldn't even imagine that, you know, in March, we couldn't have a conference in October. But we, as you all know, spent a long year in the pandemic and had to cancel it. We're hoping that we will have one this year in October. But most of the first part of the year, we had to do look at the budget and drastically cut because most of the income that the ACM Northeast gets is from the conference. And so without that, we had to drastically cut down our budget and find out where we could conserve money or cut money. So it was not a fun time, but we were able to get through it. And then we were able to get to the video festival in the fall, which all of you have participated. Thank you so much. We were able to make some money off that and also get to see some awesome videos that were created across the region at the time. So the board decided when we scheduled this that we were going to open it up to everybody, not just members of the ACM Northeast or the ACM. But at this point, we'll have a conversation. We want to include you in the conversation, but if you are not a member of the ACM, we would really encourage you to take that on. It's an important role that the ACM is doing, the wonderful work that Mike and his staff are doing in Washington, advocating for all of us. So if you are not a member, please consider doing it. It's important that we have those advocates in Washington and the work that they're doing. And I'm sure Mike will have more on that in the conference too when he gets a chance to update. So in working up to this meeting, I want to express my thanks to Kathy and Zev and working with me every Friday to meet and talk about how we would facilitate this meeting, what we want to get done. It's been wonderful seeing them every Friday. I will miss seeing them tomorrow. So I guess we'll have to shift our attention to the conference that we're planning on in the fall. So thank you again, Kathy and Zev, for the work, and as well the entire board. Also, we have in the spring the election of officers. I'm just about going to go into where we introduce the board members who are current, but for a brief overview, there are 8 at-large members who are 4 of them are elected for 2-year terms every 2 years. So that is coming up this year. So there will be 4 of us that are up for re-election or may resign, or if you want an opportunity to serve on the ACM Northeast board, that will be presented here. I think we have to finish the election by June 30th. So if you are considering or if you want to get involved, it's a great place to get involved. We meet regularly once a month. So if you have any questions about that or want any information, you can certainly ask any one of us, but you will also be seeing stuff in your inbox as it comes. One of the things that I like to think about how I can focus on what we can do, what the region can do. I mean, at the national ACM, it really does focus on Washington, and then the state chapters begin to focus on their states legislative. The ACM Northeast region doesn't really have a government entity. One of our primary goals is education with the conference. So that's been going fairly well. But what I wanted to do is really sort of increase and become more effective in our communications between each other and understand. So that's really what we've been sort of focusing on now that we've gotten through all the budget stuff. And so this last fall and getting into this year, we've really been trying to focus on efforts and how do we communicate effectively. And part of what we want to do today is at the end of this, once we get through all the reports and all the stuff, is to have a conversation about how the ACM Northeast, what they can do for you and how we can serve you better, what sort of areas. So we'll get to that on the agenda. I think, let me just go through the agenda. We have a welcome, and then we're going to do an introduction of the board members, and then Mike's going to give us a national update, and then I've asked some people from this particular states to give us some updates as what's happening in the state, and then the committees from the board are going to report out, and then we'll get to that last part where we have breakout rooms. So we're imagining, how many people are we at? We're at 60 people, so we're going to imagine some breakout rooms for about 10 minutes where you guys can talk. We have some ideas for what you can talk about, but it's certainly a free form where you can bring other ideas as to how the ACM Northeast can better serve you. What can we do to make your lives better? So we're going to get to that in the last part. That's the agenda for today. Anybody have any questions or anything like that they'd want to just bring before we move on to the introductions of the board? Okay, not seeing anything. Then let's go ahead and start with the board members. So I just wanted them to just sort of introduce themselves. We can start with the officers. My vice chair or vice president is Kathy Bisbee. So Kathy, if you just want to take a moment and introduce yourself to the people who don't know you, which is probably nobody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Bisbee. I'm the executive director at Brookline Interactive Group in Brookline, Massachusetts, and formerly of California and formerly of the ACM National Board. So I'm really excited to work with Rob and the rest of the Northeast region.
Thank you, Kathy. Our treasurer is Barbara Chisholm.
Hi, I'm Barbara Chisholm. I am the executive director at WACA TV in Ashland, Massachusetts. I have served on the Northeast Region Board for the last 10 years, and I welcome to hear anybody's comments on what they think we can do and can do better. So please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. And our secretary is Helen Chattel. Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, that's correct.
Say hello, Helen.
Hello, I'm Helen Chattel. I'm the executive director for Watertown Cable Access. I've been serving on the ACM Northeast board for just about exactly a year last week, and I look forward to serving more.
Thank you, Helen. And now we'll move to some of the at-large members. Deb, if you want to say hi.
I think you said Deb.
Deb.
Sometimes it's hard when Zeb or Deb. Hi, everybody. Debbie Rogers. I'm the CEO of Falmouth Community Television, and I'm also honored to be your delegate to the Alliance for Communications Democracy Board of Directors, as well as the Alliance for Community Media Board of Directors, on which I serve as the treasurer.
Cool, thanks. Now we can move to Zeb, since Deb mentioned Zeb. Zebulon?
Hello, Zeb Schmidt. I'm the station director at Open Stage Media, and I'm happy to be here, happy to serve.
Thanks, Zeb. Jim, are you there? There he is.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Jim Palmer, production manager at Peabody TV in Peabody, Massachusetts. Wrapping up our 15 years in this facility. We're moving into a new facility in a few months. We purchased a building, so it's been a little crazy around here. But you're working with me on the Nor'easter Awards. It's been my focus for the past several years. It's my second term on the board, and always looking for ideas on how to carry this festival forward. Everybody's been great supporters of the festival, and looking forward to this year.
Thank you, Jim. And Matt Sullivan, say hello, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Matt Sullivan here, Executive Director of LMC Media, board member on the ACM Northeast, as well as the ACM New York. And just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and also say a thank you for all the hard work that I know you all do at your individual centers.
I think that's all the at-large members. We do have on the board people who are state representatives, and that is the state chapters get to appoint somebody to the board of directors. So JP, who is the representative from Maine, says that he is having a reaction to some health stuff, so he's unable to join us today. JP asks for to say hi to everybody, and we'll see him soon. So, and then New Hampshire, Adam McEwen has just stepped down, so we're looking for a new rep from New Hampshire. So I talked with Owen a little bit about it. So we'll hopefully have a representative from New Hampshire soon. Vermont, we have Megan O'Rourke. Megan, you want to say hi?
Hi, my name is Megan O'Rourke, and I am the channel director at Town Meeting TV, which lives in the arms of CCTV under the executive directorship of Lauren Glenn, who I see over there in my bottom right corner. And I just joined the board taking over from Tammy Riley during this pandemic year and getting to know all these great folks.
Thank you, Megan. And then from New York, we have Tony. Tony, are you there?
Yep. Yeah, here I am. Tony Arian, chair of ACM New York. So I've been, the delegate since I think around 2009. It's been like too long. What I do for a living is I'm the community media coordinator for a government channel and an education channel in the small town of Putnam Valley, New York. Good to be here.
Thanks, Tony. Massachusetts, is David in the meeting? No, sorry. Yeah, David.
I'm here.
Hey, David, how are you?
Hi, everybody. David Gauthier. I'm the current chair of Mass Access, and pleased to be here with all of you today, and look forward to working with you well into the future. Thanks for having me.
And then we have Stephen from Connecticut. Stephen, are you here? I don't know if Stephen's made it, but Pua usually substitutes when Stephen's not there. So Pua, hi, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Pua Ford. I've been 17 years on Woodbridge Government Access Television. I am still the secretary for the Connecticut chapter, and I try to back up everybody as much as I can. Yeah, so I'm a hanger-on.
Thanks, Pua. And then we do have 2 appointed positions that the board gets to pick. And one of the person currently we have appointed is Glenn Williams from Boston. Glenn, you want to say hi?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Rob. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm from Boston Neighborhood Network. And I believe I stepped in for Erica Jones. So you can imagine the shoes I had to fill coming to help with everybody here in the Northeast. But here at Boston Neighborhood Network, we're prepared and ready to help anybody who needs any kind of help or assistance. And it's quite an honor to be here. Thank you.
Great. I think that's everybody. Did I miss anybody? Okay. I think that comes to, you know what I forgot to do in my part was to actually approve the minutes. So let's go ahead and see if we do that. Hopefully you've gotten a chance to review the minutes from July 2019. Let's try this polling thing. I'm going to start a poll. Do you accept them as presented or amended? Does anybody have any amendments to the minutes or anything that we missed that you want to add right now?
I think you may need to post it again. If it
Yep, it should be at the top of the chat list. The very first thing I posted at 12:29 was the national meeting. So do you need to see it again, Tony?
Yeah, because if you log on later than that, you don't see
it earlier. Okay.
Post.
Let me do that again. Then I'm going to post them. Okay, they should be there again. So we'll hold off a little bit on the acceptance of the minutes until everybody who joined us later can get a chance to see them. With that, I'd like to hand over the floor to Mike Wassner, Executive Director of ACM. Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Good, Rob. It's good to be here. Real quick question for you. In terms of the agenda, how much time would you like me to devote to the total presentation?
The agenda I'm looking at now, doesn't have my time. Let me pull up. What did we allot? I think I gave you 10 minutes, but Go with 10
Okay,
minutes.
fair enough. All right, I'll just keep an eye on the watch here. And I apologize to everyone from calling from my Subaru. You can see it's a sunny day here in Montgomery County, Maryland. I gave blood a little bit earlier this morning, and it was a little bit longer than I thought. So I'm here in a formal informal capacity at your meeting. Thank you for taking the time and offering up the time here for me to relate some things that are going on with the ACM National. Like Rob said, the ACM National had to deal with, like everyone did, with the emergence of COVID-19 last year. We had to change our programming and still conduct business for members and conduct business in Washington, D.C., even under some trying circumstances. So the national conference went virtual last year. It will be virtual again this year on June 29th, 30th, and July 1st. I'd ask that you mark your calendars for that. We'll be opening registration for the national conference within the next several weeks. And it will be a decidedly different conference because it will be national across 5 different time zones. So it means that we have to change some of our formatting, and also gives us some opportunity to do some different things with the national conference. So it will be virtual again this year. Our hope is that we will be in real time together in 2022 in Chicago, which was our original destination last year in 2020. We moved our hotel contract 2 years forward. So we're hoping actually to be with you in Chicago for the national conference in June of 2022. So mark your calendars for that as well. Despite all of the difficulties with COVID, we did do a number of significant research projects with the association last year. One is the survey that was conducted with American University and our colleague Antoine Haywood at the Annenberg School in Philadelphia on COVID-19 response. If you don't have of COVID-19 response PEG channels across the United States, which was published in August of last year. If you do not have copies of that, please let me know, because it's extremely effective in terms of talking about the effects that you and your colleagues have had across the country to connect, inspire, and support communities in need during the COVID crisis. It's a very, very useful report. It's easy to read. It's available both in PDF and online form. And we facilitated that work with American University. The other significant research task that we did last year was we conducted a survey of PEG operations across the United States of all stripes. We basically did a census during 2020, and we documented 1,700 organizations that operate at least one channel, in some cases multiple channels across the United States, and actually in all 50 states and in the U.S. Virgin Islands. There hadn't been that type of survey work in our field in at least a decade. And we've been actually using a lot of that original research work to ensure that we're conducting better outreach across the country for our programs. And we've been sharing that data with Northeast and our other regions to help actually the outreach work of ACM generally, so that our programs are more effective, we reach more people, and we reach more institutions. Because very often organizations may be operating a PEG channel, but they don't actually self-identify as a public access, educational access, or government access organization. They actually might just see it as a part of the communication work that they do, as a part of their civic communication work as communicators. So that research project culminated in the Community Media Directory, which is available online right now. You can actually do searches by zip code or by state or by name of organizations across the United States. And we've been actually using the contact information we derived from that project to help with our outreach for a host of different projects, including the Hometown Media Awards, which just had a deadline of the 8th. I want to thank everyone for abiding by the deadline. I know where there were multiple requests to change the deadline, but it's part of our tradition to keep that deadline in place just to be able to regularize our processes and actually not sort of incur extra labor costs. Because of that outreach work, we increased our applications by some 300 entries, which is, I think, a testament to the idea that there are far more organizations doing our work than we imagine, even in communities in New England, where I think it's safe to say there's a high per capita number of community media organizations in communities across the states of the region. But even so, there are lots of places that we don't have contacts with directly, and we want to try to use that research information to build more contacts. As part of that outreach work, we've been starting up a campaign of organizational meetups for professionals in the field. So to date, we've done meetups in the first quarter of this year in 15 states, and we hope to have more of those meetups happening, particularly in regions and states that don't have the representation that, say, ACM Northeast has. So we've been actually concentrating on a whole host of states where there isn't that professional networking backbone that you guys have here. And that's part of the sort of strategy we're trying to do, both increase our outreach, increase our contacts with individual organizations, and increase the sort of bilateral connections amongst organizations to help with the professional networking that is necessary to be successful in our field. So you'll be seeing more of those meetups happening as we continue into 2021 proper. I think I'm looking at Florida and Texas next. So we'll start working in states in the South and the American West. So that's on the agenda. Another couple of items before I go to public policy to mention that spring is actually sort of our busiest time within ACM National for our awards programs. So we will be announcing our National Recognition Awards that will be culminating at the National Conference soon. If you know of folks who have been outstanding leaders in the field, have done amazing things in terms of their production work, their work within diverse communities, or their work within ACM, we want to recognize leaders in our field. So please be on the lookout for that. Those awards will be announced. The award nominations will be announced soon. And much as Rob mentioned at the top of the program, this is also the beginning of our nominations process for the National Board. We will be holding national elections for, I believe, 2 open seats in the summer. Our nominations process culminates with our annual meeting that takes place at the National Conference. So if you are interested in national service, please contact a board member. You can contact me, or you can contact Barbara Chisholm, who is in your region and is also chairing the nominations committee. We do also look for appointees that are interested in national service. Primarily because we're always thinking of cultivating leads. So if you know folks particularly who are interested in national service and want to have a conversation, they don't necessarily have to be put forward in an election. We're happy to have that conversation as well. So please reach out to us, and we'll have that nomination process open soon for the national board elections. Let me turn quickly to public policy. 2 things of note before my time is up. The first, a major development has occurred in the 621 order case, the case of the city of Eugene, Oregon versus the FCC, which ACM is a party in. We sued the Federal Communications Commission over their 621 order from 2019 because of its threat to franchise fees, and particularly to community television operations that rely upon transmission and other forms of support in the community as a result of the Cable Act. We're joined by a host of different parties, including municipalities across the United States, in that lawsuit. With the change in administration, now acting chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel is leading the commission, and it appears the commission is having a change of heart in terms of its stance in that lawsuit. They have asked the federal court in Cincinnati to put the lawsuit in abeyance for 6 months as they reconsider their position in the 621 order. We do not know if the court will agree to the idea that oral arguments will be stopped, but we'll find out soon. All the parties in the case have agreed to the abeyance order request from the FCC, with the exception of the National Cable Lobbying Group, NCTA, which is not actually, we aren't actually suing. They're an intervener in the case. So we will see if that means that the FCC will delay the court hearings delay the case and reconsider their position in the 621 order, the in-kind order that we've been talking about since, well, gee, it seems like we've been talking about it since 2018. So we just got news of that this week. We'll keep you posted as that work continues. The other thing I'll tell you is with the new Congress, we're doing work to educate people in Congress about the work of community media. And it's key that we tell your success stories and that we help to utilize your contacts with your members of Congress, both in the House and the Senate. If your community has a story to tell, I'd like to hear it because it helps us basically tell the story of community media in the districts where the congressional members are. And if your communities have relationships, strong relationships with members of Congress, we want to hear about that as well. We believe that there will be a reintroduction of the Protecting Community Television Act that was sponsored by Representative Eshoo and Senator Markey last year. We don't know precisely when that will occur. The work of the SEC actually will probably impact that work a little bit on behalf of Senators Markey and Eshoo. But that's one of the areas that we're looking at. We want to actually probably also put forward a host of other suggestions to Congress to be thinking about ways of strengthening our field, whether it be investments or changes in law that basically enact ways that you can actually do your job better. So the first step in that is for us to be able to know what your relationships are with Congress. If you don't have relationships with Congress, I'd like to hear about that too, because we can help build those relationships. So that's going to be the work of the first couple of months here in 2021, whereas we are working with new committees, new members of Congress, and educating them about the work that's happening in the field. So that's kind of what's happening right now on the national perspective. I could take questions, Rob, if you think it's appropriate. I don't want to take up too much time in your meeting. No.
Sure, we can allocate a few minutes for questions if anybody has any. Does anybody have any questions for Mike? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you do have a question and pipe in. I'm gonna hold it open. Anybody?
Hey, Mike, quick question. This is Owen Preventure in New Hampshire.
Hey,
I love the idea of sharing the stories of members and member stations throughout. Looking at the beautiful collage in front of me of all the smiling faces brings to mind, is there any effort underway, and if not, could there be to collect some stories from member stations, a quick bite from each station, and compile those into something that can be shared with the having the audience of legislators in mind?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent thing for us to do, Owen. It should be fairly easy to do. One of the outcomes of that community media directory project is I now have a cross-index directory of every PEG station in America by congressional district. So we can lay that over. So it's a question, I think, of us collecting them. And I would be open to suggestions as to how that's easiest. I think in some states it's easier than others just because of the raw numbers of folks and the sort of administrative backbone that you've got, because you've got a lot of volunteers. Just want to keep in mind that in some states there's very few volunteers. So I'm mindful that we have to collect easy things. So like one sentence of something significant that occurred in 2020. Or one sentence of something that was significant that you did in 2020 to serve the community, that sort of thing. Just so that it's extremely easy for us to collect and not a burden for people to put together, rather than a video collage or the like. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'd welcome that, and I look forward to working with folks on that if you're interested.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, we might have time for one more question for Mike, if anybody has one.
Mike, John Collins.
Hey, John.
How are you? Our meetup this week, we discussed something very, very similar to what Owen was proposing. I was just suggesting that maybe instead of a perhaps unwieldy approach on a national level, we could compartmentalize and make these appeals to legislators more targeted by region.
Well, I would even go strictly by congressional district. So, so for example, if I look at Queens, you've got 4 members of the House in Queens. And I would just simply say, okay, as you talk with Grace Mengs and you talk with, you talk with, I think it's Gregory Meeks, and as you talk with your 4 representatives, please put that forward. The problem is just the amount of time that people have to do that. So my suggestion, frankly, is if you don't have the ability to do that work, have us help you do that work. So, but yeah, I think it's by congressional district. And then obviously we collate that by state, by Senate district, by Senate, so by state. And then you have more stories, obviously, right? So in a state like Massachusetts, it'll be pretty easy for us to come up with that list. And actually, I think we don't have to do that much heavy lifting in Massachusetts. In a state like Maine, maybe we have to do a little bit more lifting, or a state like New York, we might have to do some lifting. But yeah, I think what you're suggesting makes sense. But again, it's by congressional district and by Senate. All right.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right. I don't think we have any more time for questions, but I know that Mike was always available. If you have a question, you can always email him. Thanks for the time, Mike.
Please do. Yeah, and listen, I need to get back to my office, so I'm not doing the work out of the Subaru. Wish everyone really well during the rest of this meeting, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks, Mike. Take care, everybody.
All right. So now we're going to move. Well, actually, there was one question about the minutes. Has everybody been able to open it? I have one note from somebody who says that they are unable to open the minutes. Is that the case, or it's for one person, or are other people not able to open those minutes as well?
I was able to open them.
Okay.
Rob.
So it might be something that directly with your computer, if you're not able to open it. So are we ready to call the vote on the minutes? Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to try this poll thing, and it's just a simple poll. Do you accept the minutes as presented and amended? Yes or no? So let's go ahead and open that up. We'll take some time, so we can actually start with the next part of the agenda while people are voting.
You have to be present. You have to be present to accept them, though, right? Or not?
Do you have to be present to accept them?
The meetings, the minutes.
Yeah, you had to have been present at the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the question. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go into speak. Yep. Go ahead.
The only thing I want to mention is it just doesn't say who 2 of the awards went to. It says they went to somebody, but it doesn't specifically say who.
Okay.
So I would just suggest they pass, but with an amendment that we add those names in as we can.
Okay. So there's an amendment that we will correct or add the names at subsequent date. Thank you, Deb. So now we're going to move into state reports. I had asked each of the heads of the state chapters to come and join us to talk a little bit about what's going on in their state. So I think I got most of them here. But we're going to do it in reverse direction. So Jennifer is, I believe, the chair of the Connecticut chapter of the ACM North, or ACM. Jennifer couldn't be here. So I think it's up to Pua to give us anything from Connecticut.
Our primary activity over the past few years is to make sure we don't get hurt more in the way of our capital fund, which is collected by the state for grants, the Pigpedia Fund. Around this time every year, the regulatory agency determines the per subscriber rate for all the official community access providers, which doesn't cover all PEGs, but we want to keep the big ones alive. And that this year is going to be a contested docket for some reason. We don't know why, possibly because last year there was another group, with some ACM members and some not, who were disputing the simple consumer price. Anyway, we want more money, and so we're working to get more money. That's how it works. Haven't been able to get anybody together on a Zoom. They all seem to be zoomed out, but every once in a while I get on a phone with somebody and we talk for way too long because we obviously need to talk, and I'm really sorry they're not here. That'll do.
Thanks, Pua. Does anybody have any questions for Pua or any comments?
Thank you, Pua.
Sure. I'll give you the details anytime.
All right, so we're going to move to Massachusetts, and I believe David is still with us. David, if you can give us an update of what is going on in the great state of Massachusetts.
Certainly, Rob. Thank you for giving me the time. I think our priorities at Mass Access over the last year have really been sort of trying to strengthen community media in general and our organization from sort of the ground up. I'm a big believer in firming your foundations in order to move forward. So I think that has been a lot of the work that we've been concentrating on for the last year or so. Mass Access did complete a strategic plan at the end of 2019. So we started to put that into place in 2020 and furthered that with some board priorities for 2021, which basically spelled out things like helping to develop member stations and all stations across Massachusetts into the future and getting a little bit better and more modern. We're looking to develop our board into a more refined and defined organization. So really sort of establishing the subcommittees a little bit stronger, making sure that we appoint folks to work on subcommittees and empower those subcommittees so that decisions don't have to always be made at a board level and we're allowed a little bit of freedom. And we've also been working very hard on collaboration over the last year or so. We've been trying to reach out with other organizations, maybe not connected with community media. We've been working during the pandemic quite a bit with the AARP of Massachusetts and the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. I've been sitting on a task force to try to end loneliness and social isolation in older adults in the community. And we figured as older adults are typically the traditional cable viewers and big viewers of community media, we've been working hard to try to develop and share content that is valuable for older adults in our communities here in Massachusetts. So those are just some of the things that we've been working on. Obviously, many of you who are involved are watching some of the legislative work that we've been trying to do as well. But we have sort of made the decision as a board not to put too many eggs in that basket because I think other things tend to get ignored when you've got too many resources going for legislation. We have filed legislation to try to get an update to Massachusetts general law, getting a 5% of gross annual revenue assessment placed on streaming video, very similar to the way cable is doing it. And that's a bill that would benefit the state, the municipalities, and the community media centers. But we've, this board as it's constituted now has been really working hard to try to address all of the issues that we are facing and not just try to find that magic solution through legislation, but really concentrating on building those community partners and building up our organization. So this is a great step for us to be involved here and work with all of you. I've had the great pleasure of working with several of you over the last few months on different ideas. Way things are being done in other states. I think there was a little bit of a lack of communication there for a few years, but we're happy that things are headed in the right direction. So thanks again, Rob.
Thank you, David. Does anybody have a question for David?
I just have a quick question. David, for our members in the region, especially in Massachusetts, how can we get involved in those kinds of initiatives with Mass Access?
Sure, that's a great question. I appreciate you bringing it up, Kathy. We hold a monthly conference call on the first Friday of every month at 11 a.m. And it's usually easy to remember because we do it, it's always the day after the ACM's public policy call. So that next morning at 11 a.m., you can join up with us. It's uberconference.com/massaccess. There's no password or anything, so you can jump on that. We're typically sending out information on our forum, which is basically a listserv that lives at massaccess.org. And those are our main forms of communication. But, knowing that you're interested, I know your email address, and I would be no problem reaching out personally as well.
Great. Anybody else have a question for David? All right. Thank you, David. Let's move to New York. Tony, what do you got to say?
Well, actually, yesterday, thanks to Mike Wassenaar, he arranged a New York state meetup on Zoom, and we had a huge amount of participants, and we got to see and hear from a lot of people with their problems. Spectrum was a huge problem, trying to not pay existing franchise fees, but what we mostly focus on is our ongoing effort, and Dan Kaufman, MNN, has been very helpful with this. We're trying to get the right telecommunications attorneys involved for another try at crafting legislation to put forward in New York that will work correctly with an agency that is friendly to us, and we want to fold in what we've learned from the other states' successes in both internet, taxing of internet distribution as well as satellite distribution. So we're going to have another meeting with people from all over the Northeast region who've done public policy to see April 7th, I believe, that how they can help New York, with our tactics. I don't know if Matt, you have it. Our whole board was on that call yesterday. Matt and Zeb and Jim Kenny. Matt, you have anything to add on that? Because you've been in touch with Dan more than I have.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I think you pretty much summarized it. And the one takeaway that I will add is that when we did our trip up to Albany, this is going back a few years now, the one thing that really stuck with the legislators and other people we spoke with was essentially, hit them where it hurts. And that was in everyone's pockets. So I think the more that we can present this as a case for municipalities losing money, and this isn't just potential money, this is real money and big money, I think that's a very strong case moving forward.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Tony or Matt? Okay. Not seeing any. Then we'll go ahead and move to Vermont. Tammy has joined us. She is the president of the Vermont Access Network, and she's going to report, and I think she's going to be supported by Lauren Glenn.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. So we've had a busy couple of years. And I'm going to start with our achievement in 2019, October 2019. We've finally reached a settlement mediation agreement with Comcast. That process began in 2015. So my colleagues were working on that initiative for a number of years. Part of that settlement came a statewide channel, which was soft launched in December of 2020. And Rob is chairing that committee. And it's a statewide HD channel. So the VAN has a subcommittee that's working on launching that and running that. So there's a lot of work going on there. Over the past year, we've spent a lot of time internally. We're using Slack now as an interface, which has been great, I think, for our members to communicate with one another. It's been a useful tool. We've done a lot of work around developing hybrid meeting coverage. And so our members are really talking more and participate in these kinds of conversations together, which is exciting. In 2020, November 2020, after about 18 months of work, we finalized a contract template with Comcast. And what that is a template that all the 25 access centers can use, or the 22 that are Comcast can use for their contracts with Comcast. So rather than each individual access center negotiating with Comcast, Van created a subcommittee. We worked with Comcast and negotiated this contract template so that 90% of the negotiations were done. And so each access center only had a few, really could just sign it as is. And so the VAN members approved that in November. So we're pleased with that work. We were recognized by the Vermont legislature for the technical services that we provided our community during the COVID emergency. And so we were able to secure some COVID relief funds to help cover some of our costs. Lauren Glenn can speak more to that if you have specific questions. So that was really exciting to get some funds to help support the Access Center's work. We have a Vermont telecom plan that we're working on. It's a 10-year telecom plan that addresses major developments in telecommunications industry, including broadband, cellular infrastructure, all that kind of stuff, regulatory policy. And we were able to be written into the plan in that we should be considered a participant in that plan. So that's really exciting. We'll be submitting some testimony that urges recommendations from the PEG study to be included. So obviously a lot going on the regulatory and advocacy front. That's really been our focus. And part of that, we realized a couple years ago that we really needed to get some help. We hired a lobbyist, Amy Schellenberger, and her firm Action Circles in 2019. And she is really assisting us with our advocacy efforts along the way. So we hired her in the summer of 2020. We advocated for a PEG study committee, and the committee was made up of legislators, nonprofit administrators. Lauren Glenn was the VAN representative, cable industry reps, members of some regulatory bodies, and they had a series of meetings over the summer of 2020 to consider the changes to the state cable franchising authority. At the end of that process, the committee determined that we needed some more expert study on the subject. And so we were able to secure some funding from the legislature to pay for an expert study. That expert study was done just released in February of 21. And it's called the PEG Study Report. And it was completed by Berkshire Telecommunications Consulting for the Vermont Agency of Commerce and Community Development. So a lot of work, obviously, on that front in the last couple of years. What's come out of the recent study, it's essentially an expert opinion about the state's authority, what authority the state has in terms of telecommunications tax structure. It includes some potential solutions for our financial viability in the future. And VAN is particularly interested in the opportunity for Vermont to modernize the regulatory and tax structure, as well as the concept of a basket of public benefits. So there are a number of recommendations in this study, and I don't know how much time we have today, Rob. I have them here. There's a number of recommendations, and the VAN Advocacy Committee, which is led by Lauren Glenn, is really working on a strategy around moving those recommendations forward. So, we could go on for 2 hours about it, right? So yeah. I don't want to take up too much time. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, what VAN has been up to for the last year or so.
I think Lauren Glenn dropped some stuff in the chat for you guys to take a look at. Lauren Glenn, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to be really explicit on the goal of the PEG study that the state authorized after many years of us having a strategy to have the legislature acknowledge us as an essential service, which they did when they gave us COVID relief money. And then the need for a telecommunications lawyer to provide the state with a clear understanding of what authority it has to tax the internet. I mean, quite frankly, that's the question that everyone asks. And as we know, the state's authority and municipalities' authority is pretty strongly curtailed by the federal government, FCC, and the Internet Tax Freedom Act. So the question of what the state could do to help us find alternatives to the cable franchise fee really hinges on its authority to do anything around telecommunications policy. And I think what's emerging right now with the example in Massachusetts, which is really a 5% on streaming, 5% on a tax on content, if you will. And then the Vermont recommendation is for a basket of telecommunications public benefits, right? So to put PEG and E911 and universal service and sort of consider them all a parallel public benefits and find alternative ways to fund them. And the primary recommendation, which is different from the streaming tax approach, the taxing the programming approach, is a taxing the right of way. and pole attachments or wires, the amount of wires that hang on the poles. So that is probably going to render the most revenue for Vermont. The state has authority to do that. And what we do know is that there isn't going to be any one revenue source that completely replaces the $8 million that we get collectively from cable franchise fees. So no matter how we proceed with the state augmenting the decline in cable revenue, we are going to have to be very aggressive about how we diversify our revenue from government sources, whether that's legislature and municipalities, which are not really in the habit of providing funding in Vermont, unlike other places. So that's new. And then other revenue strategies that really are on the earned income and the development side. So there is no silver bullet. I think that's really important for everyone to understand, at least in Vermont. And I think that that is going to be true across the country. And that states have varying levels of authority that allow them to actually act on our behalf, despite the handcuffs that the federal government has put on states and localities.
Thank you, Lauren Glenn. Does anybody have any questions for Tammy or Lauren Glenn? I will say that, as I understand it, we're absolutely willing to share the report and answer any questions offline. It was a great study, the document. So if you get a chance to read it, it's well worth the time. And Lauren Glenn, I think, has put some are they PowerPoints, Lauren Glenn, or of just trying to consolidate it into the essential parts?
The report is included, and then 2 graphics that summarize the report.
Great. Thank you. And let's move on to New Hampshire. Owen, how are you?
Doing well, Rob. Thank you so much. Great to see everybody once again. And in terms of an update, I can say that there are no known direct threats in the legislative pipeline that we know of. So we are, as a board here at the NHCCM, just focusing on strengthening our position and really trying to establish a solid foundation moving forward, so that we don't find ourselves with our back up against the wall with what might come down the road. So that is certainly our focus. And to that end, we just left one of our meetings today where we're buttoning up the details on, similar to and mirroring what David and Mass was saying, focus groups, we're calling them, and one of them is keeping their ear to the track, as it were, to see what may come down both from the industry side and certainly the legislative side. One of the challenges we've got here in New Hampshire is, for those that don't know, we're a very tax averse state as a whole. So the idea of, you mentioned the word tax, it might as well have 4 letters in it. So, you know, we're trying to open the discussion within the state to look at ways that municipalities, us being very decentralized in New Hampshire, each town, each community really has a lot of authority over their franchises and such. And I'm interested in ways and beginning to explore municipal broadband, for example. I think that would be something that would be more palatable to the communities throughout New Hampshire, and look at ways both in terms of revenue and for not only ourselves, but a way that we can contribute to our communities in that regard as well. Non-legislative, a big issue that we've got is sports coverage due to COVID. A lot of our communities, we've got another focus group on that. Families and our communities are expecting to see their kids play in high school sports and what have you, and the National Association of High School Athletics and the state chapter of that, you know, really limits, particularly towards the end of the season, in those high viewership games, So we're looking to, we've got another focus group that's looking to sort of investigate where agreements and contracts are with those with the school systems in the different communities, and how we can, again, form a position and a statement and say, you know, these are our communities, we'd like access to them. We do have access, but just not that live coverage that folks are looking for. And so make sure that we have a seat at the table when the next opportunity arises. Those are really our primary focuses, aside from really just coming together. We got a newly, there were several vacant positions over the past year. A lot of, you know, COVID upended a lot of personal lives and professional lives. Story we all know too well. So there were several seats that fortunately were filled. So as we coalesce in this first quarter of this year, we're just looking forward to strengthening positions on those moving forward.
Thanks, Owen. Anybody have a question for Owen? Okay. And as I said earlier, JP was unable to join us. I know there is some stuff happening up in Maine. I don't know if there's anybody in the meeting who is knowledgeable or would like to say a few things about it, but if so, please unmute yourself and let us know. All right, well, we look forward to hearing from what's going on in Maine at a future date. So we are running a little behind schedule. I'd hope to get you guys out of here at 2:30, but it might run a little bit longer than that. So I'm hoping you'll be able to stay with us, because we do want to have that discussion at the end of this meeting. Up next, we do have committee reports from the board. So I'm going to go to the committee chairs and ask them to give a brief report and try to be succinct, but we'll start with finances. And Barbara, we did attach some reports.
Okay.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Hi everybody. Hello again. So the Northeast region currently has a balance in our checking account of $44,751.82. We had a very successful Nor'easter Awards competition this past year. After film Freeway costs, the region netted $11,048.20 in entry submissions. We held a virtual award ceremony in December. We received sponsorships for the award ceremony of just under $4,200 net. After the ceremony, we opened up reorders of plaques and certificates and netted $1,138. Since we were able to hold, since we're unable, to hold our annual conference in 2020 due to the pandemic, the Nor'easter Awards was our only revenue for this past year. Expenses were trimmed down this past year due to reduced income in the region. With a virtual award ceremony, the expenses for that event were minimal. The only expenses were the cost of the plaques in the second and third place certificates. The region was able to donate $1,500 to the ACM's public policy campaign in 2020 to help assist with the efforts to preserve community media funding. The region will soon be opening up applications to help support our state affiliates with their needs locally. And I thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Anybody have any questions for Barbara? If not, we will move on. Thank you, Barbara, for the work.
Welcome.
So communications and marketing. Matt, if you want to say a few things about what we've been working on there.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. So Rob, Jim, and I have been working on culling our email lists, making sure that everything is up to date. We don't have too many bounces, and of course, building out that email list. So we'll be also sending out a form to everyone. This is going to be really just a survey that we want to send to all members and ask you to forward that to anyone else within your networks. We also have, just as a reminder, our Facebook groups and our Instagram. So I would encourage everyone to give us a like and follow on both of those. And if you have anything that you would like to communicate to the group at large, I will drop my email in the chat so that you have it. And please feel free to send me anything that you feel is important, and any good work that's being done out there. I will be working on sending an email out shortly with a really a summary of some of the wonderful stories that we've received. So again, keep up the good work that you guys are doing out there. It's important work, and regardless of what people have to say about franchise fees and cord cutting, this is really essential services that we provide to our communities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody have a question or comment for Matt? Go ahead, David.
Thanks, Rob. Matt, looking forward to connecting in another few weeks. I was just thinking the other day, or last week anyway, on the last Mass Access call, we kind of put out a call for some of our members to start creating some video of the success stories. A lot of us in our individual cities and towns are sort of patting ourselves on the back and saying, look at all this great stuff we're doing during the pandemic. And I said, well, we should make this more regional. We should make this more statewide. Do you think it's appropriate for us to start doing something that's a little more regional to, you know, the whole area, all of these states together, and look at what community media is doing across all of these states? And shouldn't we be, you know, using our own talents and facilities to sort of promote ourselves, and we can help each other out in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely, David. I think that's a wonderful idea. And I would welcome anyone who would like to send over any of those videos that you're creating, telling your success stories. I can keep track of those. There's also a program that someone recently had told me about that could be excellent to keep track and make sure that we have all those things in one place. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Thanks, David.
All right. Anybody else have a question or comment for Matt? Okay. Going down my committee list, I see next is special awards. Zeb, I don't know if you have anything to add. I don't think it's been very active right now, but if you want to say anything, now would be a chance to. Is Zeb still with us? Zeb might be gone. Okay. Nominations committee. Anything there? I think it's been pretty inactive now. But Deb, if you want to say anything.
I don't know, Matt, do you have anything? I know that we do have a seat open that we're looking to fill. Matt and I are going to be meeting. If anybody's interested, you can either email Matt or myself.
Yep. Thank you, Deb.
And then Jim, I think you have a report for Nor'easter.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. We'll be brief. I know we're running a little bit late, but Nor'easter Committee was quite busy last year, grappling with everything pandemic related and what to do and how to run through everything. And I would say we probably met more than any other year I can imagine, just trying to sort through everything. So we did have 307 entries last year, a little bit of a breakdown. 106 of those were from the budget 1 category and 187 were from the budget 2 category. And 14 overall excellence entries. And we think with the pandemic and station closures, it did affect the numbers a little bit. So our entry numbers were a little bit low. And also due to increased costs that were associated with mailing everything out this year, we did have to adjust the pricing a little bit, which was the first time we had to do that in many years. It's been a long, long time since that had been taken a look at. So. But we were still very successful. We had the online watch party on Facebook and YouTube. I think we had around 100 people participating over both platforms in a very robust conversation on the Facebook platform, which was awesome to have everybody engaged and interacting with each other during that. So thank you to everybody that joined us there. I do want to give a shout out to a few people that are always instrumental in helping us out. Andrea Santopietro from Watertown Cable, she edits the winners reel for us, and that's how you got to see all of the amazing clips that were played that night. So huge thank you to Andrea. Again, Karen Hayden at Bethune for helping us with the awards. Keith Tebow, as always, a wonderful master of ceremonies. and also just the rest of the committee, Helen, Glenn, and Barbara, for all the work there. So we're going to be opening up again this coming May. So keep an eye out for that. Be mid-May with entries closing towards the end of June, judging all summer long, with an announcement by early September for the fall. And obviously we are keeping the health and safety of everybody in mind, but we're hopeful that things can maybe turn around and we can have an in-person event in the fall. But it's going to be entirely dictated by how things progress, as you can imagine. But let's all keep our fingers crossed there. We're always looking for judges. We have 45 individual categories when you add everything up. So it is a lot to judge. We do have some stations that are judging, 3, 4 or more categories. So if anybody would like to join us as a judge and can put a team of 3 people together for this summer, please reach out to Helen. She's our judging coordinator. She does an awesome job at that. So I'd love to get more people involved there. The last thing I'll add is we tried to do our little special contest last year. And I think during the pandemic, it just wasn't meant to be. It was going to be a short political video. We've tried a few times. Unfortunately, again, we haven't gotten really any entries. So we're going to shift gears. We'll probably have something new this summer. Got a couple of ideas we'll talk about in committee and let everybody know. But we always want the special contest to be a lot of fun. So when you see this come out, please have some fun with it and send us some good work. And what we'll do is judge those in person for the final contest. So I'll post our email address that we use for the Nor'easter Awards in the chat. We use videofestival@acm-ne.org. It goes to myself, it goes to Helen, I think it goes to Glenn as well. So a lot of us can see the messages and kind of respond as quick as possible. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Rob, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Does anybody have a question for Jim? All right. Appreciate the work, Jim, and the committee. Thank you. So also we have at our board meetings begun to discuss some work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Kathy has graciously taken lead with that on chairing our committee. So Kathy, if you want to say a few things about that.
Sure, absolutely. So it's a fairly new committee at the regional level. We really wanted to look at ways in which our regional board could take leadership on the DEI challenges and opportunities that we have both at the regional level and I think at the local level as well. So we're starting with ourselves, looking at our policies and nominations and actions. And we're going to be joining my organization's work with Inclusion Boston, which has a great program focused on governance through a DEI lens. And I think our goal with that is getting everybody on the board with to be on the same page and understanding the language and really some of the things that have, I think, come into sharper focus in this last year around diversity, equity, and inclusion work. We'd really like to know from you how that kind of work, anti-racism work or DEI work is unfolding in your community and what the challenges and opportunities are in your communities. And we'd like to know what you'd like to see us doing at the regional level and at the conference in the fall. So when we have the breakout session today, if that's something that comes up, we will be collecting some of the responses and talking about that, as well as sending you a survey and encouraging you to respond to that and give us some feedback about how that's going in your community. And I do want to say we're not just looking for the level of diversity in your content and programming and membership. We want to hear other things that might be coming up in conversations. I know the IEE group that Barbara and David and Glenn are a part of at the national level have been doing some work around an upcoming session on free speech versus hate speech. So I'd love to hear on the regional level, are those issues that are coming up and how can we create programming and content through our committee that can help address and bring learning back to our communities as well. So if you're interested in joining me and the rest of the committee, please let me know and we will tell you more about it.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Kathy? Okay. So thank you guys. We got us through that pretty quickly. So we may be back on track for our agenda or our time. So we've come to the last part of the meeting, which is where we try to hear from you guys. And so what we've crafted is this idea of we have breakout groups.
Here's my hand. I'm sorry, I just want to know, was there a conference committee report? Because I
No,
skipped that.
that's that we're shifting. That was this annual meeting committee will become the conference committee meeting. So we don't really have anything on that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Karen.
Rob,
yeah,
I think it's safe to say that Zeb actually has created a graphic.
Yes.
And could share that with us, which might be kind of exciting. And we are hoping to do the conference in person in Providence.
Yes.
So I think that is probably the extent that we have information available. Right?
Yeah. Kathy, you just stole my closer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
All right.
I had no idea.
That was for the last name, Josias. All right. So now we want to try to do a breakout group discussion. So the committee that I was working with on this meeting wanted to sort of prompt you with some ideas as to what is important to you, what can the regional board help you with, and we came up with some topics. So what we're going to do is going to break out, I think we're at 52 people, so I was going to do 6 breakout groups randomly assigned to throw you all into a group for you guys to spend 10 minutes talking about the things that we're suggesting, or maybe anything else that comes up to it. I'd ask that somebody is assigned to report back to the group when we come back out of it. So probably the first item of business is who's going to report out. Have that discussion amongst yourselves, and then come back and tell us what came of it. So I'm going to try to post some of the things that we are thinking about. So I'm going to put in the chat room. Did it go? Enter. Do I go ahead and enter? There it is. So actually, this list was kind of devised with the group. But Kathy, do you want to just talk about some of the things that we're looking at here? No? Are you shaking your head? No,
Yeah, no. Sorry.
You were
Somebody
shaking
was
your head.
asking me about DEI work, so I wanted to make sure I responded.
Yeah.
So we just devised a couple of questions that we thought might be helpful for framing some of the conversations, but really we want to encourage you to talk about whatever's coming up in your community at your media center. This is really an opportunity for us to do what we would normally do at the conference, where we would go out to dinner or we would go have drinks together, right? Or talk in the hallways after the sessions. We're trying to replicate that in a virtual way, so bear with us and think about what is really relevant and important for you at your center right now. So we thought some things you might be thinking about, because we're thinking about them at our stations, which is how are you envisioning the crystal ball telling you what you're going to do to fully reopen? Are you open? Are you closed? Do you have some staff in your center or not? What are some of the challenges though that you're thinking about in terms of operations specifically? And then of course around funding and fundraising, and we kind of jokingly call it post-apocalyptic PEG, but thinking about sort of the future of funding in community media. Positioning the value proposition. I know a lot of us, I think probably everyone has gained a stronger value proposition in our communities just because of the visibility of our response to the pandemic. So we'd love to hear about that. We'd love to hear about community content that has been new for you. My staff just put together the stats for the last year. We tripled our content in 2020. I mean, I had no idea. So I'd love to hear that kind of information from you guys as well, about what's been different and what's been successful and what's challenging still. Youth media, seniors, education, remote learning, how are you participating in that kind of work in your community? And then DEI work and facilitating community dialogue. How are you doing that differently maybe than you did in the past, or what are the issues coming up around that? So you can talk about other things. Maybe you could talk about your board, you could talk about whatever is relevant for you, but we thought we'd give you some topics just so that you have something to wrap your brain around. That sound good?
Let me unmute myself. Okay. Yeah, we got 10 minutes. We're at MVP people. So we're going to do 5 breakout groups of about 10 people. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And just a reminder, as Rob said, when you go into the group, make sure one person can just jump in and volunteer to either be the note taker or to be the facilitator, because sometimes it's a little awkward. So just jump in there and start talking.
All right, so here come the groups. Go ahead and click join when you get it. We'll see you all in 10 minutes.
Rob, you are talking very quietly, or you sound like you're far away.
Switching my microphone back to where it should be.
That's good.
Okay.
I was going through my headset, which is sitting over here. Okay, so I was just saying, I'm so excited to hear what you guys came up with. So let's start with room 1. Who was designated as reporting out for room 1?
I guess that would be me, Keith. You know, again, we had such a short period of time to speak, but we just talked about what we've been doing, right? How we've handled it, and a couple of us are in educational institutions and haven't been back in a year. And we just talked a little bit about that, how that's going to impact us, and how we're doing more remote broadcasting and recording of programs, and the likelihood that this may continue when we get back, just because of, I know Walt Kosmowski and Beverly was talking about how, you know, some of his producers who've been producing remotely find it easier to get guests when you do it remotely, because you don't have to worry about scheduling people and finding time for them, right, to get into the studio. So that's basically what we were able to discuss in about 10 minutes.
Great. Okay. And room 2, which looks like it had a very few people. It was interesting to see how they automatically distributed people. Room 2, I see was like 3 people. Did anybody want to report out on room 2?
So in room 2, we had a lot of technical difficulties and it was a lot of interference. So we lost a lot of people. We ended up with just 3 of us chatting, and we really, Audrey really was the only one that really got a chance to speak. So Audrey Duncan, do you want to share some of the things that you were telling us?
Oh, sorry. So I'm with BronxNet television. We're in the Bronx, New York. Bernardo was also in the same room. He's from the same organization as well. And I was saying that we are still working from home. We work from home throughout the pandemic, but things have not slowed down. They've sped up. We converted our training to virtual training and teaching people how to use video conferencing apps to produce their shows, as well as how to edit with various apps and programs, and added some other fun classes like music video production and such. On our creative services production side, with our signature shows, they have produced very meaningful content to help people navigate all of the issues that came up during the pandemic, whether it's partnering with the city's health department to get information out about vaccines and such, partnering with hospitals, health information on COVID and other issues, having lots of discussions, you know, topics on our shows about economic recovery and all of the issues that came up during the pandemic. And Bernardo, who didn't get to speak, can talk more about.
Bernardo, do you have anything to add?
How's everybody doing? So yeah, I mean, Audrey said it well. I mean, we have not slowed down during COVID at BronxNet. We've actually gotten even more busy in programming. I head up the programming department. We've been doing a lot more remote broadcasting, a lot of live press conferences from the governor, from the mayor, every single day. We have a huge initiative with the Department of Education here in the Bronx. We have an initiative called the Bronx Education. So it's an evolution of education. So we've been broadcasting lessons on our channels for kids that don't have access to Wi-Fi and don't have, you know, access to internet. There's so many initiatives. We put together an impact report for our website for stakeholders to see what we've been doing during the pandemic, and it's chock full. It's just really been busy.
Busy's good, right?
Hey, Bernardo, can you share that link to that in the chat? I think I'd love to see your impact report. That's awesome.
Yeah, sure. Let me pull up the URL for you guys. I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Room 3. Who's reporting for room 3?
I took the notes.
Okay.
A lot of the conversation went around what we were doing during the pandemic. A lot of people who do not normally cover municipal meetings were doing lots more municipal meetings, wondering how to get somebody else to do it when they get back to the regular studio work. Did I say that right, Jim? And let's see. Promotion was the starter topic, how to tell the outside world what you can do, even in normal times, and that TV is not necessarily old-fashioned. Let's see what else I got here. Rebranding. If you're not just a TV station anymore, a TV channel, set of channels, will people still find you if you call yourself media? And anybody else who was in there, fill in the blanks. What did I miss?
That we're doing more Zoom meetings and that people look to us as the experts for virtual meetings. So we're also doing virtual meetings outside of our regular municipal meetings that we do that have increased as well.
The community conversations. Yeah, sorry I missed that.
Great, thank you. And room 4?
Hi, everybody. We looked at point number 4, which was exercise news, tech support. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Senior center exercise classes. Where are we here? I've notes written all over my page here. But the takeaway was a lot of the centers that we spoke with worked with their senior centers creating exercise programs or other information. They relied on a lot of snail mail, getting that information out to seniors. So that was a good resource for them. And programming it on the channels was also very beneficial because there was an educational gap between putting it on social media versus having it on the actual channels. There was also programming really focused on how seniors can help themselves feel better about being isolated. That was something that David had also mentioned earlier on our Zoom. What else do we have here? Working with kids who didn't graduate from high school and teaching them different skill sets on Zoom. That was from Ed Dugan. And we also had cooking shows that where people cook multicultural dishes at home, and those were aired both on the channels and on social media. And then there was another point of working with a council of aging on Zoom and getting people caught up on everything that's going on in their communities. So there was definitely a lot of focus on senior programming, putting it on the channels as opposed to social. And we'll kick it over to anyone else in room number 4 if I missed anything. Actually, I know what I missed. There was work being done by youth volunteers. That was one of the major points. So there were students who had some extra time on their hands, and they were able to help produce that programming for the seniors, mainly through tech help, and then doing some other news and also entertainment.
Cool, thank you. And last but not least, room 5.
I guess I got tagged for room 5. We had a good discussion, too short, but a good discussion about what it looks like to be coming back, hybrid especially, hybrid meetings, folks feeling pressure from the membership to be back in the building when they cannot be and don't want to be, not because of any personal reason, but because it's just not safe yet. Having a vaccine mandate for staff, we talked about that, and also doing Deb brought up doing a survey for staff to find out if folks have childcare, and then the fact that there's going to be a lot of demand for content production, combined with I think the Vermonters adding the the usual March kind of thing in the spring where everybody has a lot more energy. Certainly been seeing that here in Massachusetts as well. And I think that was about it. We didn't get a lot of time to talk about sort of what the hybrid looks like, and also kind of the psychological impact of coming back and folks preparing for that. I know there's been some great articles recently about folks thinking about how this year has hit us, PTSD and all of that. And, what are we going to do when we don't see Helen's cat anymore? I mean, I think it's going to be pretty upsetting, right? But of course, there are a lot of very serious issues about, how the inequity of the vaccine and distribution happens in different states and even in different communities. So I think those are some of the issues that we had time to discuss.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else want to add anything from that room?
Or just the resistance to Zoom in government channels, which doesn't affect many people, I realize, but it's quite a phenomenon.
Great. So first of all, I'd like to recognize that it was short and there are topics that are not easily discussed in 10 minutes or less. So I have added my email to the chat room and Kathy has offered up hers as well. So the hope is that this conversation will begin to drive what we do at the conference so the board can take some of the information. And I imagine that we will also be adding additional surveys that we try to get from the membership. What can we do to help support and advocate for you as we get to the planning of the conference? So the conference, well, let me just talk a little bit about what next steps as we finish up here. First of all, the National ACM Conference is happening, I believe, at the end of June. And Mike has offered us a chance for the region to gather together. So we will be doing that at the national conference. So I look forward to seeing a lot of you there as well. And then we get to the conference in the fall, which we hope will be in person, but we're also discussing how do we include people who may not be able to join us in person. So we'll be having a very broad discussion on how to do that. We hope that people will be out of the pandemic and we can get there in person. I look forward to seeing everybody in person. It's been a long year, but the date, just so you know, is the 20th, October 20th through the 23rd. And Zeb has offered to upload his graphics so you guys can see what we've done as far as promotion. We have a lot of planning to do. I think that's it, unless anybody has any final comments that I'd like to add.
I guess I just wanted to ask folks if this was helpful, if there was value today, and if there's anything for the next gathering that you'd like to see us include in the agenda. So we'd love any feedback from you about this. How can we make it better? What was great about it?
And you can say that now, and of course you can email us after the fact and let us know. Anybody have any final comments or thoughts?
I just have a quick burning thought that I wanted to come back with. Relative to Matt's work, Matt Sullivan, great to see you, buddy, and Jim. Jim, your special call for entries in that contest, was lacking a little bit of response, but I thought maybe combining forces. So what if there were a call for a promotional piece for your center, and then that could in turn that and be clear that this will be used in some fashion for promotion at the regional level and beyond. Again, I just have this. I would play a bumper or a promo on my channel, loud and proud, and to say that I was a member of the Alliance for Community Media Northeast. So if we could fashion those out of those call for entries, just a thought, and I'd be happy to talk with you offline about ideas for that.
Great. Thanks, Ellen. I'll reach out to you for sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more as well. Thank you.
Can I have a question that one of the speakers spoke about, and that I could, if it's not appropriate for right now, maybe I can speak to David later, David Gauthier. But it sounded like some of the franchise fees. What I thought I knew was that the franchise fees would basically never go to the internet, or it didn't look like it was going to happen. but it sounds like and I am in Massachusetts, so it sounds like that might happen or might already have happened. So if that doesn't need to be answered now, then I can just talk to someone else later on, like David.
You can give me a call, Ed. We can talk about it.
All right. Thank you.
That sounds like a good topic to me too. I was also curious about the same thing, the likelihood of internet taking impact for income.
Okay. Well, David has offered to talk to you guys about that.
Anytime.
Yep, great. All right. I think that's it, guys. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Also move.
There, Kathy.
Second.
Seconded. Thank you all for your time. As I said, please reach out to any board member. We're always interested in what you guys got to say and how we're doing. So
Enjoy the weather.
Thank you, Rob.
Oh, and
Bye,
now.
everybody.
Good job, Rob. Great job, Rob.